They fired me from the company I co-founded while using the name I created, the brand I built, and the vision they said held us back. They thought I'd walk away quietly. They forgot one thing: I still owned the trademark. My name is Daniel Kessler. I'm 37 years old. I'm the guy who named the company, who wrote the tagline on a napkin during a rainy night in Austin, Texas. The guy who stayed behind while my partner flew to LA to pitch our line to influencers and investors. I was never the loud one in the room, but I was always the first one in and the last one out. I co-founded Vontrue, a fashion tech brand, built to merge minimalist design with adaptive tech. And then one Tuesday afternoon, I was called into a meeting and told I was no longer a fit for the vision. That was the moment they cut me loose, but not the moment I let them go. It was a Tuesday, 3:37 p.m., the kind of time where nothing major is supposed to happen. I'd just come back from grabbing an iced Americano, the same coffee shop I walk to every day since we opened our first office on East 6th. Same barista, same order, same worn-out steps from years of giving my life to a brand that started as a sketchbook and a $5 domain. Then came the email quick sync at 4 p.m. with Adam and Legal, room B12. I didn't think much of it. Adam, my co-founder, had a habit of calling last-minute meetings whenever he wanted to reset direction. Usually buzzwords, vague feedback, a new trend he saw on LinkedIn. But this one was different. Room B12 was the legal room, the one with the frosted glass and the awkward silence. I walked in and the air shifted. Adam sat with two people I didn't recognize at first. One of them was the external counsel we hired last year. The other HR flown in from the parent company that recently invested. No coffee, no greetings. Just a stack of papers. Daniel, Adam said, not looking up, this isn't easy, but the board believes it's time to bring in new leadership. Fresh eyes. A stronger go-to-market perspective. I blinked, didn't say a word. I just sat down slowly. He kept going. You're the heart of what we built, but the market's evolving. We need someone who can scale. Someone with growth mindset. I almost laughed at that. Growth mindset. I was the one who grew this thing from a Tumblr concept to a Series A funding round. But I didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't flip the table. I just looked down at the logo embossed on the folder. My design, my font, my idea. They wanted me gone. But they'd forgotten a tiny legal devastating detail. The name Vontrue was registered under my name. Not the company's, not Adam's, mine. I trademarked it 3 years ago because I'm cautious like that. Because back then Adam missed a filing deadline and I didn't want to take chances. So I paid the $275, filled out the form myself, filed it under Daniel Eli Kessler, and never changed it back. They didn't know. Or maybe they did, and just didn't think it mattered. It would. I walked out of that room with my backpack on one shoulder, my laptop in my hand, and zero bitterness on my face. But inside, I was ice, cold, clear, dead set on letting them choke on the very brand they tried to steal. And if you've followed me this far, don't scroll away just yet. Because what happens next, it's not loud, it's not legal drama, it's quiet destruction. If you're into real stories of betrayal, comeback, and revenge, go ahead and hit that follow button. Because this isn't over, not even close. Before the marble floors, before the stylized glass doors, before the $3 million valuation that turns strangers into sycophants, there was a garage. Not even mine. It was Adam's. 2016 Austin. The city buzzed with startups trying to reinvent groceries, calendars, mattresses. We wanted to reinvent fabric. He had the business degree, the pitch deck, templates, the perfect LinkedIn. I had a sketch pad, a secondhand sewing machine, and insomnia. It worked at first. He'd throw out big ideas. I'd make them real. The name Vontrue came to me in the middle of a rainstorm. I was sitting in the garage listening to water slap the rusted siding, wondering why every techwear brand had to sound like a machine. Cold, mechanical, forgettable. I didn't want that. I wanted elegance, edge. A word that could sit on a fashion label and also headline a keynote stage. I wrote it in charcoal on the back of an old invoice. 5 letters, 1 silent X at the end. Vontrue. Adam loved it. Said it sounded like something European. He mocked up a website that same night. I designed the first hoodie on Illustrator the next morning. We built everything from that garage. Launched with $1,000 each, no external money. Ran ads on Instagram. Answered every customer email ourselves. Back then we were broke, but honest, hungry, unfiltered. We packed orders at 2 a.m. while eating gas station ramen, arguing over thread count and marketing copy. I used to think those nights were golden, sacred, but looking back, they were the beginning of something warped. Adam started changing after the first article hit Hype Design. It wasn't even that flattering. Just a 2-paragraph mention that called us a promising aesthetic from Austin with interesting material blends. He shared it everywhere. Changed his bio to co-founder of Von True, as seen in Hype Design. Suddenly, the man who used to triple-check our Shopify backend was too busy for inventory counts. I didn't mind, at first. I liked staying behind the scenes. He was the voice. I was the structure. But something kept nagging me. A quiet, persistent pulse of paranoia. One night, he asked if we should start thinking about filing for IP protections. I said, yeah, already did. He blinked. What do you mean? I told him I'd filed a provisional trademark 6 weeks earlier. Just in case. Just to make sure the name didn't get scooped up. He shrugged it off. Smart move, he said. But the way his jaw clenched, I remembered it. Still, I didn't read into it. That was my mistake. Fast forward 2 years, we got a feature on TechCrate. Then a shout-out from a B-list rapper. Then a small check from an angel investor who wore our trench coat to a summit in Brooklyn. And just like that, the startup grew teeth. We hired interns, then contractors, then staff. Adam started spending more time in LA. Meeting with stylists, sneaker blogs, brand consultants. I stayed in Austin. Held down the logistics, the design files, the customer journey. Everything they never show on an Instagram reel. He started calling me head of product in meetings. I was still co-founder, but the titles got fuzzy. Then came the Series A, $2.2 million from a VC firm out of San Francisco, the kind that had their own copywriters for pitch decks and brand narratives. And suddenly I was no longer a visionary, just a great guy who helped get things started. The day the money hit, I sat on the roof of our office and watched the city lights blink beneath the clouds. I remember thinking they're gonna rewrite this whole story one day. And I was right. They tried, but they forgot. I wrote the first chapter. And I never gave up the pen. It started small. The kind of small you don't even question at first. My name was left off a calendar invite. No big deal. It happens. Then it disappeared from the footer of a pitch deck. Maybe a formatting error. Then someone on the new marketing team referred to me as the original designer. As if I had been replaced. Archived. I asked Adam about it once. He laughed, said, "Don't overthink it, man. You're the foundation. People know that." I nodded, because I wanted to believe him. But foundations, they're meant to be stepped on. The day I really knew something was off. We were in a brand strategy call with the new growth consultants the investors brought in. 4 people on Zoom. One of them started sharing a slide titled, "The Founding Story." There it was. Adam's face, Adam's quote, Adam's background. No mention of me, no sketches, no garage, no late nights or burnt hands from prototype heat press machines. Just one sanitized sentence. The idea for Von Treux was born when Adam recognized a gap in the fashion tech market. That was it. Like I'd never existed. Like I hadn't poured 6 years of my life into something I didn't even put on my own resume because I was too focused on building. The moment the slide flipped, I went on mute, turned off my camera, sat there, staring at the wall of my apartment. Behind me on the shelf was a framed print of the first receipt we ever shipped. Order 001 mesh reflex hoodie, midnight gray, shipped to a college kid in Boise. I'd packed it myself, tied a string bow on top, wrote a thank you card by hand. That's who I was. That's what they were erasing. After that, I started documenting everything. Call notes, emails, meeting minutes, even Slack messages. I wasn't paranoid. I was preparing. See, there's a kind of silence that happens when people are trying to push you out. It's not the loud kind. Not arguments or fights. It's scheduling meetings without you. It's moving files out of your shared drive. It's HR sending policy updates you were never consulted on. Death by 1,000 subtweets. I stopped sharing designs in the main channel. Started backing up everything I touched. Even the old Illustrator files I hadn't opened in years. I wasn't planning revenge. Not yet. I was just holding on to proof. That I was here. That I mattered. 2 weeks later, Adam sent me a message at 11:52 p.m. "Can we talk tomorrow, one-on-one?" I knew what it was. Not a conversation, a courtesy. He wanted to pre-fire me. Let me know before the lawyers came in. Make it feel like a breakup instead of a beheading. So I replied, sure, noon. I closed my laptop, sat still in the dark. The room smelled like burnt dust from my old radiator. Outside, some car alarm wailed into the quiet like a protest no one was listening to. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, because I was tired. Tired of pretending it was still hours when I'd become just another cost center on a spreadsheet. When noon came, he called from a clean white conference room. I could see reflections of windows behind him. Downtown skyline, somewhere high up. He smiled like we were catching up. Look, this isn't easy, he began. He said it like a friend. But there was a legal rep sitting in the corner of his screen just out of focus. I didn't interrupt, didn't flinch. When he said, the board thinks it's best we bring in new leadership for product, I just nodded. He kept talking. Buzzwords, transitions, exit package. My mind wandered. I was thinking about the napkin. The one with the word Ventreux written in all caps. It was still in a box under my bed. I'd kept it, pressed flat between 2 pages of a sketchbook I hadn't opened in years. He finished talking, paused, waited for a reaction. All I said was, okay. He looked surprised, almost relieved. That's the thing about betrayal. It always expects to be louder than it is. But mine, it would come quiet, precise. And when it landed, it wouldn't leave a bruise. It would leave a scar. The envelope arrived 3 days later. Heavy paper, matte finish. Black foil logo on the flap like a wedding invite for a marriage I'd just been kicked out of. No surprises inside. Termination letter, severance agreement, mutual NDA. A few lines of legalese dressed up to sound like gratitude. We appreciate your contributions and vision during the early stages of the brand. Early stages. Like I was a phase. Like Ventreux was something I dated in my 20s and outgrew in my 30s. They gave me 60 days of medical, 4 months pay, 1 year non-compete within apparel and wearable tech. I read it once, then again, then set it on the kitchen table beside a half-drunk cup of coffee and a dull paring knife. I didn't sign it. Not because I was bitter, but because it felt like a joke. 4 months of hush money for 6 years of blood. My name wasn't mentioned once in the attached press release. The new chief creative officer was a guy named Colin. Colin wore loafers with no socks and once suggested we add AI-generated fashion mood boards to our site. I had to remind him that fashion isn't a spreadsheet. But Colin had the look, the vibe, the buzz. They always want buzz until it stings. The next morning, I got a text from Morgan in finance. She didn't say much. Just, hey, I saw the announcement. Just wanted to say thank you. You made this place better than they deserved. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because words felt like glass. Anything I said might cut. I packed up the last of my things from the office later that week. No one greeted me. No one offered to help. My keycard worked one last time, then let out a soft beep and died behind me. Inside my box, the first fabric swatch I ever tested. A framed article from that one time a microblog called Our Hoodies Quietly Revolutionary. And a pair of scissors that had cut every single prototype before we outsourced production. I paused in the elevator mirror. My face looked older, sharper, like a building that had weathered more storms than its paint let on. Then I walked out. No drama, no scene. Just a guy with a cardboard box, a locked jaw, and a past they couldn't erase, even if they tried. Back home, I placed the box on the floor. Didn't open it. Instead, I opened the drawer beside my desk. Pulled out a folder marked IP. Inside were the original USPTO documents. The trademark filing. 3 pages, 1 signature. Mine. Filed under my name, my address, my intent. And right there in black and white, trademark owner Daniel Eli Kessler. Mark Ventreux, status live. I stared at it for a long time. Not with glee, not with vengeance. Just clarity. They'd taken my job, my title, my team. But they were building their empire on a name they didn't legally own. And that name, it was mine. I didn't rush. No panic, no press release, no anonymous tweets. Just quiet. And paperwork. That's the thing about control. It doesn't need volume. It needs leverage. And I had it sitting right there in that beige folder tucked beneath a stack of old invoices and coffee-stained sketches. 3 years ago, I'd filed the trademark myself. Not out of paranoia, out of habit. Adam had missed a filing deadline for our business license back then. He was flying to Tokyo for some trend forecast summit, and I just handled it. I did what I always did, the work behind the curtain. No thanks, no fanfare, just boxes checked and forms filed. That filing, it was still active, still valid, still mine. I spent the next 2 hours reading every clause of the USPTO ownership guidelines, renewal windows, usage proof, transfer rights. I hadn't transferred anything. There was no assignment to the company, no shared rights, no license agreement. The name Vantro, the logo, the tagline, every inch of brand DNA they were now scaling was technically mine. And in business, technically is everything. I made copies, scanned everything to the cloud, sent a backup to an encrypted drive I hadn't used since we first bootstrapped. Then I did something small, subtle. I logged into the official Vantro website backend. I still had admin access, they hadn't revoked it yet. Sloppy. I didn't change anything, didn't touch code, didn't break the glass. I just exported the entire site structure and saved it. Not to leak, not to publish, just to document, just in case. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from anger, not even from betrayal anymore. It was something colder, something settled. Like a knife that's already sunk in. You don't feel the pain anymore. You feel the space it leaves. The next morning, I received a newsletter update from the company. Exciting things coming to Vantro. New leadership, new energy, same mission. They didn't mention me, of course. But the kicker. They were expanding into footwear. Using the same naming convention I'd mapped out on a whiteboard 3 years ago. I pulled out my old sketchpad, found the page. There it was, a full product matrix with future sub-brand names. Vantro Force, Vantro Line, Vantro Glide. I'd named those too. Filed domains, snagged social handles just in case. Still owned half of them. Still under my name. I checked the Hoy's records. Confirmed. Control isn't noise. It's receipts. That afternoon, I scheduled a call with a friend from college, Elena. She runs a boutique IP law firm now. We hadn't spoken in years, but she picked up on the second ring. Daniel, yeah. Long pause. You sound calm. I am, I said. But I need you to look at something. I sent her everything. Trademark documents, domain receipts, screenshots, Slack threads, even a pitch deck with my name manually removed from the founding team slide. She called me back 20 minutes later. You weren't paranoid. I wasn't trying to be. You have a case. A strong one. I don't want a case, I said. I want my silence to be the loudest thing they hear. The next step wasn't revenge, not yet. It was strategy. It was filing an official notice of trademark usage and control to the USPTO, just a formal reminder that the mark is still in active use. Under the original owner. It took 15 minutes, a few uploads, a digital signature. But that notice, it would show up the next time anyone tried to reassign the trademark without my consent. It was a tripwire. Invisible. Undeniable. I didn't need to shout. I just needed to wait for someone to step where they shouldn't. And they would. Because men like Adam always do. It happened on a Thursday. I know that because they always launched campaigns on Thursdays. 11:00 a.m. Pacific. Adam loved the optics. Drop day became part of the brand lore. Vantro drop trended at least twice in our early days. This drop was different though. It was their first without me. New creative director, new product line, same name. Only, the name didn't work anymore. I got the call at 1:17 p.m. Not from Adam, from someone else. Sharon. She used to be our head of ops. She stayed after the transition. Her voice was shaking. Daniel. We can't access the back end. The trademark portal's locked. Shopify's throwing IP errors. We're locked out of our email subdomain too. I stayed quiet, listened. Did you do something? No, I said. I just didn't undo anything. Silence. They're freaking out. Investors. Legal. The whole board is on a call right now. I nodded to myself. It had begun. See, 2 days earlier, I had quietly initiated an IP enforcement hold through the Digital Commerce Registrar. Simple protocol. If a company is using a brand name that belongs to someone else without an active licensing agreement, they risk being temporarily restricted. It's not personal, it's procedural, and their entire campaign infrastructure was built on that name. Landing pages, autoresponders, email headers, custom product URLs. All built on a house of cards. Cards I no longer held, because I never let them go. They tried everything. Reboots, server resets, alternate login routes. But the system wouldn't budge. Because the system wasn't broken. It was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Protecting the owner of the trademark. Me. An hour later, I checked LinkedIn. The Van True profile had deleted the drop post, then reposted a new one vague and apologetic. We're experiencing unexpected technical delays. Drop postponed. Thanks for your patience. No mention of me, of course, but that didn't matter. Because the silence was loud. The press would notice. Competitors would speculate. The cracks had started to show. And somewhere in a boardroom I once helped pay for Adam was sweating through a linen shirt. I pictured him pacing, snapping at the tech team, blaming someone, anyone. But the truth was simple. You can't cut out the foundation and expect the roof to hold. And if you've made it this far, if you're still listening, let me say this. Follow this story, because the next part, the part where I finally answer the phone, it's not about revenge anymore. It's about leverage and legacy, and how silence, when timed right, can be the loudest move in the room. It came at 9:43 p.m. No text first, no email, just a name flashing on my screen. Adam. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. Hey, he said, voice tight, not cold, not angry, but strained like someone swallowing too much pride in too little time. Can we talk? I didn't say anything, just waited. He took the silence for a yes. I assume you know what's going on. Still quiet on my end. He cleared his throat. The drop failed. Everything tied to the domain-flagged IP issues. Legal's been on with Shopify and the host provider for hours. Another pause. Then the real line, the one he rehearsed. I don't know if this was your doing. But if it was, we can fix this. Together. That word again. Together. I leaned back in my chair, watched the ceiling fan turn slow circles in the dark. Tried to remember the last time he said something to me without an audience. Without a lawyer 2 seats over. Without looking at his phone halfway through. And now he was listening. Because now he had to. I spoke, finally. It's not broken, Adam, I said. What? The system. The IP. The domain. None of it's broken. So why the... It's responding to ownership. That's all. A beat. You know, I never transferred it. Another beat. Longer. I thought it didn't matter, he said, voice soft. I thought we were... You thought wrong. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he asked it quiet but loaded. What do you want? I could hear the desperation slip through his tone. He wasn't used to being on this side of the conversation. The side without leverage. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even betrayal anymore. It was the sound of a man staring at the edge of a cliff he didn't know he'd built himself. I didn't answer his question. Not directly. Instead I said, You remember the napkin? He didn't respond. I kept it, I said. It's in a box under my bed. The name. The first tagline. That night in the garage when you said, What if we made clothes that adapted to people instead of trends? You remember that? Still silence. That idea, I said, that vision, that was real. I paused. But the moment you decided my silence meant surrender, you stopped building the same company. He sighed. One of those long exhales that sound like they've been waiting to escape for months. I made mistakes. Yes, I said. I was trying to grow the company. Fast. I got caught up. The VCs wanted a story without me. I finished. He didn't argue. Just let it sit. I want to fix this, he said finally. I believed him, not because he'd changed, but because he had no choice. You don't start fixing leaks when you care. You start when the ceiling's collapsing. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, then hung up. No threats, no yelling. Just facts. And for the first time in a long while, I slept. Not deeply, but without flinching. The document arrived at 7:14 a.m. I was still in bed. Didn't even hear the notification. When I finally rolled over and checked my phone, the preview read, Formal proposal, Ventreux IP resolution, confidential. I didn't open it right away. I got up, brushed my teeth, fed the cat, made coffee the way I always did, slow drip, no sugar. Then I sat by the window with the blinds half drawn, letting just enough light in to feel real. Only then did I open the email. The PDF was 6 pages. It wasn't a letter. It was a contract. Offered in the name of reconciliation, of course. Legal phrasing wrapped in polite desperation. They were prepared to offer a buyout. One lump sum for the rights to the Vantro named the associated IP and a retroactive licensing fee for all previous use. The number wasn't small. 7 figures, low, but still 7. And there it was spelled out clearly. Full assignment of brand ownership, name, trademark, and domain rights to Vantro Inc. in perpetuity. Just like that. As if everything that name carried could be erased and rewritten with a few digital signatures and a wire transfer. I closed the file, didn't respond, didn't forward it to legal, didn't even archive it. I just sat there staring out the window as the city woke up. The thing about being offered money, real money, is that it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like they've finally admitted you mattered. But only because now, not having you costs them more. Around 11 a.m. my phone buzzed. Elena. She'd already seen the proposal. It had gone to her inbox too. It's clean, she said. Too clean. They're scared. I know. You're not tempted. I'm tired, I said. Not desperate. She laughed once quiet and knowing. You still own the mark, she said. You don't have to say yes. You don't even have to answer. I know. Then what do you want to do? I looked over at my old sketchpad. Still there on the shelf. Next to it, the box. The napkin. What did I want? That was the first time in months I'd asked myself that question without bitterness. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a seat at their new table. I didn't want to return to something I had already outgrown. What I wanted was mine. Not as payback. Not as leverage. As proof that what I built mattered. That silence didn't mean absence. That quiet didn't mean weak. And most of all, that not everything could be bought. I didn't sign, didn't reply. Just left it sitting there unread in their inbox. Later that day, another email came, following up on the proposal. Let us know if you have any concerns or counter requests. Still no response. Because this part wasn't negotiation. It was memory. And I wasn't ready to sell mine. It started with a tweet. Then 2. Then a thread. A customer posted a screenshot and error message when trying to check out a pre-order for the new line. Page not found. This product is no longer available. Another tagged the brand. Been hyped for months. What happened to the drop? And then the questions came. Why did they push the launch twice? Why did the link stop working? Why is the site redirecting to a placeholder? No one answered. The Vantro Twitter account deleted the replies. The Instagram went silent. No stories, no updates. Just a brand pretending everything was fine, while the roof caved in. I didn't have to do anything. No tweets, no leaks, no late-night expose. The system did the work, one layer at a time. Because when a brand's identity is frozen, every dependency fails with it. Emails bounce, apps crash, fulfillment platforms freeze orders due to brand inconsistencies. Even their Google ads stopped running. Trademark conflict. And the investors, they started calling. Not for me, for them. And Adam, he stopped calling entirely. On Thursday, I got a short message from someone on their comms team. Polite, careful. We're undergoing unexpected transitions in branding. Please bear with us during this adjustment period. Adjustment. That's what they called it. The name they'd wrapped in vision decks, plastered on mood boards, stitched onto every hoodie from Berlin to Brooklyn, was no longer usable. They tried to pivot. Quietly started updating pages with a new temporary logo, used initials, talked about evolving beyond the name. But people noticed, of course they did. The web remembers. Brand loyalty doesn't transfer well when customers feel like they're watching a cover-up. The comments turned sharp. The tone shifted. Wait, why are you changing the name? Where's the founder? Did someone steal this brand? And still no one said my name, as if that would make me disappear. One night I got a DM from a former intern. She said she'd been laid off. The budget had been restructured. Whole teams dissolved overnight. Launch calendar canceled. Retail collab postponed indefinitely. Ambassador program gone. They told us not to talk about the name thing, she wrote. We all knew it was you. I read that line a few times. Not with pride, not with malice. Just quiet. Like hearing your own name whispered in a room you used to own. I took a walk after that. Same path I used to take when the company was just a dream. When I couldn't afford lattes and had to sketch ideas in the margins of receipts. The air was thick with Texas heat. A little breeze. The kind of weather that never quite cools down, just shifts weight. And somewhere between the street lamp and the mailbox, I realized something. This wasn't about winning. It was about reminding them. Some things don't belong on a balance sheet. Some names aren't just assets. Some roots run too deep to be uprooted with legal phrasing. They tried to erase me, but when the scaffolding collapsed, my name was still on the cornerstone, and they knew it. It came at 2:06 a.m. Missed call, one voicemail, no follow-up. Adam never called that late. Not even in the early days when we used to pull all-nighters and crash on the office floor between batch runs. I didn't notice it until morning. The light from my phone screen was still cold, barely piercing the gray Austin sky leaking through my windows. I stared at the notification for a long time. Didn't press play right away. I knew what it would be. I just didn't know what version of him would be on the other side. I finally hit play. His voice cracked immediately. Not from tears, from exhaustion. From something that used to stand tall, collapsing in slow motion. Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. Pause. I wouldn't either. Another pause, this one longer. Everything's falling apart, man. I don't even know where to start. I thought we could fix it. I thought we could outmaneuver this. He sounded like someone trying to rewind time with his bare hands. And finding out that memory has no handles. The investors pulled out last night. Said the brand's toxic now. Said too many unanswered questions, too much risk. We had a team meeting this morning. Or yesterday morning, I guess. I told them we'd pivot. That we had options. But the truth is, we don't. Silence again. Then, I know I took it too far. I know I tried to edge you out. I thought I was doing the right thing. Scaling, streamlining, whatever the hell that means anymore. But now it's just me, in a room, with a brand name I can't say out loud. That line hit different. Not because it was poetic, but because it was true. He went on. I guess I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not because of the collapse. Not because we lost everything. But because somewhere along the way I started believing the lie that you were replaceable. His voice dropped to a whisper. You weren't. And then almost as if he'd run out of words to hide behind. Goodbye, Daniel. The voicemail ended. No second message. No spin. No damage control. Just 6 years condensed into a voice trying not to break under its own weight. I sat with it for a while. Didn't replay it. Didn't delete it either. I just let it be. Like a photograph from a life I left without closing the door. Later that day I checked the Vantru site. It was gone. Not down, just gone. No redirect, no placeholder, no announcement. The servers had been wiped. Or abandoned. Just a white screen. Blank. Like it had never been there at all. But I was. I had been. And for the first time since they cut me loose, I didn't feel erased. I felt whole. Not because I won. Because I stayed true. To the name, to the work, to the silence, and to myself. The building was smaller than I remembered. Funny how memory does that expands places to fit the versions of ourselves that once lived there. It was late afternoon when I pulled up. The parking lot was empty. No bikes chained to the rack, no Teslas plugged into the charging spots. Just a faded for lease sign taped to the inside of the front door curling at the corners. The glass still held the ghost of the old logo. You could see it if the light hit just right like residue from something once permanent. I pressed my palm to it, cold, still. The landlord met me out front. Older guy, quiet, didn't ask questions. I'd called him 2 days earlier and told him I just wanted 10 minutes inside. Not for business, just closure. He didn't blink. Said he understood. Guess he'd seen it before. He unlocked the door with a soft click, nodded once, and stepped aside. Take your time, he said. I stepped in. The air was stale, the kind of air that doesn't belong to anyone anymore. Unplugged routers, stray cords, dust catching in sunbeams. The front desk was still there, cleaned out but not gone. No more front-facing iPad. No dried eucalyptus in the corner vase. Just wood and shadow. I walked past it, down the narrow hallway toward the studio space. Every footstep echoed more than I expected. The walls still carried the pinholes from where we mounted our first lookbook. Back then, we didn't know how to hang frames properly. We just hammered until something stuck. I stopped by the old design table, the one with the nick in the corner from when I dropped the rotary blade. I used to sit there for hours, headphones in, drowning out the chaos while trying to make ideas feel like fabric. It's strange seeing a space stripped bare. You start to notice how small it always was, how much of the size came from your ambition, and your belief that it would become something more. In the back room, the pegboard was still hanging. No tools. Just outlines where they once lived. The shape of what used to be. That's what this whole place had become, a map of absences. And I wasn't sad. Not really. I was just still. Still in the way you are when you realize a chapter has truly closed. Not with slamming doors or angry farewells, but with silence, and dust, and light. I stood there for another minute, hands in my jacket pockets, breathing in the last of it. Then I turned, walked back through the hallway, nodded once to the landlord. Thanks. He locked the door behind me. Didn't ask anything, didn't need to. He knew. I sat in my car for a while. The street was quiet. No branding, no buzz. Just the sound of a city that had kept moving even when one small empire folded in on itself. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel like something had been taken from me. I felt like I had taken something back. The trademark is still mine. I checked again last week, not because I was worried. Just because some habits don't break even after the war ends. Still active, still live, still mine. Ventre. 6 letters. No longer stitched into hoodies or sewn into influencer captions or whispered in glossy pitch rooms full of people pretending to believe in ideas they don't understand. But it lives, not as a company, not as a brand, as a name. A name I protected when no one else did. Sometimes I wonder what they say now, the ones who tried to bury me behind polite handshakes and silent boardroom votes. Do they call me a liability? Do they still avoid my name like it carries static? I hope so, because that means it still matters. I didn't cash out, didn't license it, didn't settle. The offers came, some generous, some desperate, but none of them understood what they were really bidding on. They thought they were buying a name. What they didn't know is you can't buy what was built in the dark, what was dreamt at 3 a.m., what was sketched while broke, what was written before the first dollar arrived. That kind of name, you don't sell, you keep. These days I work quietly. I consult for small teams. I mentor 2 founders who remind me of us before the cracks. I design when I want to, not when I'm told to. And some nights when it rains hard enough to sound like applause on the roof, I open the sketch pad, flip to that napkin. The ink's faded. The corners are soft, but the name is still there, exactly how I wrote it. So if you're here now, if you've stayed with me through all 12 parts, then you already know. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about remembering who you were before they told you to forget. And if that hit something real in you, follow, stay close, listen in. Because I've got more stories, real ones, and they're not done with me yet.